Hello and welcome back to Good Game Nation, where we bring you all things TCG. My name is Preston. I'm here with Sam. Say hello.
Hello, we're back.
We're back again today, and we're bringing back one of our most viewed videos so that we can go back and review and see what's changed, how reality actually shaped up to be, and what we expect to happen in the future. We're talking about tier lists today. We're reviewing our leader tier lists from way back. We'll try to link it somewhere. If it's not here, it's there. Um, but this is where we left it off. We were using the tier list website. This is what we expected people to play the game.
Yeah,
We
we,
expected,
we yeah we went over like which leader effects we thought were the most interesting and the ones that were going to be the most effective. We didn't really have any decks in mind. Like we thought cards would complement them perhaps, but not necessarily how they would interact with each other or things like that. It was just base structure and the effects of the leaders themselves. That's why we put Zoro and Dofi at the top because they were the most universal leader effects. Things like that.
yeah, they seemed like they were going to be really good
Yep.
and highly played and top tiered and one of the more winningest decks.
Yep.
Uh, which there's a few leaders like now looking back, seeing how people actually ended up playing is really interesting to see. Like we super undervalued the starter deck leaders with Kaido and Kid being actually some of the most used decks, and Odin. Like we think that I still think the leader is good. That's the thing. The leader is good. The cards surrounding the leader can't win in this meta. There's too many things that counter three drops, and that's what the scabbards revolve around. Which is something that, like, when you're trying to think of things, you have to look at it as a whole. And just looking at the leader as its own, good leader, bad deck.
And it was
Um,
unfortunate, we didn't take into account that Robin absolutely ruins the Scabbard deck. There's so many cards that just ruin a lot of your key attackers. So that interaction really just made the deck near impossible to play. We also put a lot of value into control decks. Coming from the West, I think that is pretty common, is to put more stock into control decks. But that didn't really showcase very much in the East. It was very, very aggressive very early on. And I feel like it stayed that way mostly throughout the meta.
yeah, and I think even towards the end, it was trending more aggressive.
I would agree. So let's look at the tier, what we think like would have happened. So where do you think Zoro was towards the end of the East era of set one?
So I think at the end of set one, Zoro started to trend down. I
Right.
think they were starting to find better combos with Law, and they were still just dominating with Kid. So I
Yeah.
think that Zoro dropped to a mid A,
Yeah.
even a low A,
Yeah.
uh, towards the end.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's the same for Red in general. I think we could say the same for Luffy. Luffy was definitely better than B tier.
Mhm.
He had a strong showing through set one, especially early on. So he probably was closer to A tier as well, which
Mhm.
was a great surprise. I was really happy to see that leader effect taking a stock and have success alongside Zoro. I thought Zoro was just going to dominate solo Red, but
Mhm.
starter Luffy was definitely better than what I expected.
Yeah, and that might also just have to be with people wanting to play Luffy. There's always a good chance
True.
that, like, it's a decent effect. The decks could be identical, and I think Zoro should be played over Luffy most of the time. Uh, but he did perform well. I think early on he
Yeah.
performed much better than Zoro, but Zoro's just going to always have a better, I think, trajectory through any set and through any meta.
I agree. And I think Red's success definitely was hampered by Kid. We talked about it before. He was the clearest tier throughout the entire set one. Like we covered him so much in Meta Monday, and we stopped covering him, but we didn't stop seeing those decks. They were everywhere. They were near identical, so we didn't talk about them all the time. But it just showed that the structure of the deck is sound because of how solid the leader was. He's universal. His leader effect is always valuable, and it was something we undervalued when we originally did our tier list.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't expect people to play. that and try to attack with him twice every turn. And that's basically what they're doing. They play one or two characters on board, maybe a blocker or the character Eustace, and then they just attack with their leader repeatedly,
Yep.
uh, which is nasty. I mean, it's very powerful to be able to drop 3 Dawn on your leader and then tap out 3 and discard a card and attack again. Two
Yep.
8K attacks is nasty.
Nasty. It was incredibly powerful, and it had the strongest showing, so it probably will continue, to be honest.
Yeah.
Alongside Kid was probably Kaido. I think Kaido was the leader that I think we didn't undervalue too much. I think the leader effect itself isn't that powerful. I don't think it's maybe a one off. I find myself not using it very much, but every once in a while. So I think we were right in that aspect. But again, we just undervalued the cards that were there. I think we knew they were good. Didn't think we would think they were going to be that oppressive. I think we would value more the blue purple, but solo purple was just so strong.
Yeah, I think that when we're looking at leader effects alone, Kaido is not a good leader effect. It's not something that you use often. It's something that you use at the end of the game when you've already put enough on board to finish. When it comes to leader effects, he's not super great. The deck is good though. And
Yeah.
then I believe people are playing the Kaido over the blue variants because of the 5 life at the end of the day. Because
Yeah.
I think the Kaido, blue purple Kaido, is better for ramp. But if you're getting 4 attacks from Kid on by their second attacking turn and you only have 4 life, that's scary. You want to trend towards a 5 life leader in that meta.
Yeah, and I think that's what was being valued. It's the same thing with Kid as well. Like I think we liked some of the leader effects better from the other leaders, but Five Life was just incredibly strong throughout. I think the only dual color that we saw very strong success, especially towards the end, was Law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Law
And
definitely was trending up.
that's a great segue. Yeah, Law was trending up. People were finally figuring out like what lists were strong, and once that was locked down, I think that's where kids started to maybe slightly slow down. But I think it hurt Red more than anything else. I think it made Red near impossible to play.
Yeah, people that were playing red just picked up the green cards that everyone else were playing and threw them on a Law leader
Yep.
and had best of both worlds really, and were able to swarm boards and win a lot more tournaments at the end.
Nope, definitely agree. I think a lot of these rest of these leaders that we thought would be strong definitely trended down. I don't think they were necessarily bad. I just think the other decks were just a little too strong. Like Dofi, I think is a strong leader, but I think the matchup specifically with Kid makes that deck very hard. So and we saw a few, but it's probably closer to. I mean, I'd imagine B tier.
Yeah, I think so too. I think good players played it and had some success, but when you have stuff that we're considering S tier that is oppressive, your control isn't going to be consistent enough or fast enough to really get going.
No, I would agree. And I think that's the same for a lot of the control. I think Kaido comes down to C and Croc right probably right next to him. Whereas I think they were there, but they just weren't as common. And I think it just showed that that matchup was, especially in the East, just very, very, very hard to play out.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think Odin speaks for itself. It definitely comes probably way down here.
which
And,
is unfortunate because, like I was saying earlier, good effect, bad deck. Um, it
and
just can't survive.
and no help in set two either. Unfortunately, I think the deck just continues to unfortunately struggle. But I definitely will move this Croc up one tier. We definitely saw some of these Crocs, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because that was probably one of the more interesting decks to look at because you could always choose to play blue purple or Dofi if you're playing blue, and it feels like those decks would be better. So it was always nice to see a crocodile that topped or that where someone was proud enough to post,
Yeah.
uh, which is really exciting.
No, really exciting, and it excited me to see a little more blue than I expected. Because at the start it was just red and it was just green, so it was wondering where the blue and purple were. We have Shakes and Uda here as well. They did not appear in any of the findings we had. I didn't see a single one. I'm assuming they existed. We just didn't see any. So for now, we're gonna leave them in not available. They could be good. They could be bad. But for right now, I'd imagine they are unplayable.
Yeah.
Leave that up in the air.
Yeah, I think Uda was limited to how you could actually get the leader since it was a red promo. You had
Right.
to go to the movie and pick it up. And then it has a very interesting effect. So um, it didn't get a lot of play. And then with purple, you have better purple leaders that are more universal. But you did see a lot of cards from that Shanks film deck
Absolutely.
make it into those. So it's just the leader doesn't have enough support to feel like you can take it into a big tournament where you're going to most likely playing against kids or law players. So
Nope, I definitely agree. But I think this tier list is very inductive of what we saw from the
mhm.
meta in the East. Law and Kaido were definitely the most dominant decks out of the two, with A tier either trending A down or up. With the set finally coming in early December, what do you expect to change? What do you think is still going to be S tier? Is some of these decks going to change according to how we play? Because I definitely think, especially throughout across all games, is we definitely have different styles comparing to the East. So I have to imagine we're going to see some of these decks and some of this tier list change.
Yeah, and I think that throughout we're going to probably see more control in the West. I think you were mentioning that the West likes to play in that manner uh, and a little less aggressive. So I think our control decks will gain value. I think that our decks that are aggressive, that are already trending down, are going to trend down. Um, with like the only thing that is aggressive that I consider to be aggressive is Law to be trending up still. Like I think Law, it was already moving up in the East. I think the West should see those lists and go, how can we make them a little bit better? How many can we just start taking these good Law decks to tournaments from the start instead of going through the phase of playing Kid for 10 weeks?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think Law was 100% trending up, and it has so many tools and so many resources and access to all of the good red and green cards. So it's definitely trending up, and I definitely think Control trends up as well. Because when I originally did that tier list, I felt really good about Blue Purple being very strong, which is addictive of how much we love our Control decks.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't think green was going to be a problem because of that. So it's nice to see. It's going to be interesting to see how that flips over. On the flip coin, I think red probably trends even further down. Red was definitely going down. I definitely think with a control wave from the west hitting, I think, as you said earlier, before we extreme rush trends down. Rush is easily punished. So I definitely think both these decks trend probably heavily down. Not so much Zoro because his effect's universal, but Luffy probably, I'd imagine, trends very much down.
Yeah, and with those going down, I expect the West to play more blue purple Croc,
Yeah,
and even blue purple Kaido. I think comes up one,
yeah.
uh, just because like even we saw Zach when we first got the set really loving blue purple Kaido, and I think that just shows that being able to ramp off your leader like that is gonna probably resonate more with players in the West.
I think we didn't see very many from the East, and I have to imagine that's because they prefer the Croc. I think the Croc is still probably slightly better, but I definitely have to imagine we're going to see more of the Blue Purple Kaido. And I think that deck is strong, so I do think we'll see a few more of those pop up. I think the bottom of the list is pretty accurate still. King and Odin, I don't think are very playable. Everything that you want to do with King is Kaido is just better at. Um, I don't think that the blue crocodile will trend too far up. I still think Dofi is a better blue leader. And red green Luffy, the law is just the same color, it's just with a better effect.
Yeah, I think if Law does well, people will be playing Luffy, and you'll probably get more success out of Red Green Luffy
Mm-hmm.
just because that archetype is gonna swell.
Right.
But I don't know if it's gonna outperform the decks that we have above it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only one is Kaido. Do you think Kaido stays in S, or do you think it slows down a little bit? I think we were starting to see less of it as the meta trended.
We were definitely seeing it trend down. I do think it drops to A tier with red green law being so aggressive. I think you can probably win games with red green law before uh, the Kaido can finish the game with like the board wipe. If you
Right.
can win before they get to their 10 drop, that's all that matters. Because if you lose to that, like as soon as purple gets the board wipe on, red green's done.
Right, and I think that's yeah, it's still a strong deck against it, so it probably will still heavily.
Mhm.
But I definitely think I agree that it's trend slightly, very slightly down, just because I think Croc is also going to trend up, especially here in the West.
Yeah, and I think Kid stays in the same spot because people are going to see the success that it had and they're just going to piggyback off of that, which I'm absolutely going to do. I'm going to play Kid
Hmm.
until something else comes along because it's so much like it's the aggressiveness that I wanted out of Red, uh, with the consistency of everyone else winning in the world with it. Um, and
Yeah.
the only reason I would play something else is if Law was consistently beating the kid. Like I'm only going to play the best deck. If I have the ability to do that, is a different story. Or if I have the cash flow to do that, different
Yeah.
realm. But I would definitely be playing the best deck if I had a choice. And I think that's our S tiers right now is Law or Kid.
Yep, and definitely would agree with that. All right, guys, this is our tier list going into set one meta, starting very early December here in One Piece in all Western and Oceanic, European, any English printed cards.
Yeah, I
Um,
think South America gets it too.
South America, yes. Let us know down in the comments, guys. Do you agree? Did we miss? Did we put too much stock into one card? Do you agree with us that you think blue and purple will probably trend upwards because we do value control more? I think. So let us know. Is your favorite deck up here? I want to know.
Yeah, let us know if we missed. Let us know what you think. And let us know what you're playing. Just let us know everything. Just tell us your life story in the comments. We're looking forward to it.
Magellan.
Magellan. You got to pronounce things better, baby.
I read it the way I said it. I'm gonna be honest, guys, and I read it last. I didn't watch it last, so I'm gonna stand by it. Oh
Thank
God.
you guys for coming by. If you've gotten this far, give us a like. If you want to get more One Piece TCG content, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You're on YouTube. You know what to do. And until next time, see ya.
Bye.